The battlefield had gone silent. Alara's armor no longer hummed with power. The exoskeleton that had carried her through 3 days of relentless combat now felt like a tomb of metal and ceramic plating. She had pushed beyond exhaustion, beyond reason, to hold the line while the evacuation ships lifted the colony's children to safety. The predator cubs, that's what the human soldiers called them, the young of the Krell species, barely old enough to understand war but old enough to be its victims. She had found them huddled in the wreckage of their learning center, 12 pairs of luminous eyes staring at her through the smoke. Their elongated faces, covered in fine silver fur, had been streaked with dust and fear. The Krell were apex predators on their homeworld, but their young were as vulnerable as any child. Alara had done what any human would do. She had protected them. Now, as she lay in the scorched field 3 kilometers from the extraction point, her vision swimming with dark spots, she wondered if it had been enough. The helmet display flickered once, twice, then died completely. She felt the weight of it on her head, the last functional piece of her armor. Her fingers wouldn't respond to remove it. Everything hurt. Through the ringing in her ears, she heard something. Small sounds. Chittering clicks and worried chirps. The cubs. They had followed her. Alara tried to speak, to tell them to run, to hide, to find the evacuation zone. But her throat was raw from breathing smoke and shouting orders. All that emerged was a weak rasp. She felt small hands. Paws. Touching her armor. Patting her shoulder plates. One of them, the smallest, pressed his face close to her helmet's visor. Even through her fading consciousness, she recognized him. Tyrn. He had been the one clinging to her leg when she'd carried them through the artillery barrage. Go, she managed to whisper. Safe zone north, but Tyrn didn't leave. His large eyes, golden and bright, filled with something that transcended species. Tears. The small Krell cub was crying. He chirped urgently to the others. Alara felt many small hands now trying to lift her, to move her. They couldn't. She was nearly twice their height, and her armor added another 100 kilograms. Through the gray fog claiming her mind, she felt them doing something else, fumbling with her helmet seals. No, she thought. Don't. The helmet had her identification, her mission logs, proof she'd completed her objective. But her body wouldn't obey her command to stop them. The seals hissed. Cool air touched her face as they lifted the helmet away. The last thing Alara saw before darkness took her was Tyrn's small face, determined despite his tears, as he clutched her helmet to his chest. The other cubs gathered around him. They were leaving, running north, carrying her helmet like a precious treasure. Captain Jung found them 2 hours later. His ranger unit had been sweeping for survivors when they encountered the group of Krell cubs. Exhausted and stumbling, but still moving north. The smallest one carried something in his arms, refusing to let go even as medics tried to examine him. A human helmet, battered, scorched, but intact. Where did you get this? Jung asked through the translator unit. The small cub, Tyrn, according to the temporary ID bracelet on his wrist, chirped insistently and pointed south. Then he made a falling motion with one paw, then pointed at the helmet and tapped his chest over his heart. Human. Fell. Important. Jung felt ice in his stomach. Show me. They found Alara where she had fallen, her armor's distress beacon too damaged to transmit. If not for the cubs, if not for Tyrn's determination to bring her helmet back first, to show the humans where she was. The medic pressed fingers to her neck. Pulse weak, but there. Get the stretcher now. As they worked to stabilize her, Jung knelt beside Tyrn. The small cub still clutched the helmet, his golden eyes wide and worried. She saved you, Jung said softly. It wasn't a question, Tyrn chirped affirmatively. Then he did something that would be replayed on every human colony world for generations. He carefully, reverently placed Alara's helmet in Jung's hands. Then the small cub touched his forehead to it, a gesture of profound respect in Krell culture. The other cubs did the same, one by one. 3 weeks later, Alara woke in a medical bay, every part of her body aching but alive. The first thing she saw was her helmet, polished and mounted on the wall across from her bed. Below it, a small drawing done in childish strokes, a human figure surrounded by 12 smaller figures with bright golden eyes. A nurse noticed her stirring. You're awake, good. You have visitors who've been very insistent. The door opened. 12 Krell cubs tumbled in, supervised by adult handlers. But Tern broke away first, scrambling up onto her bed with the fearless determination of the very young. He chirped happily and pressed his furry face against her hand. Alara, too overwhelmed for words, simply held him. The handlers explained through their translator. They wouldn't leave the medical center. Tern especially. He kept bringing your helmet to anyone who would look, showing them where you fell. He saved your life, Sergeant Ilara. She looked at the small cub purring in her arms, then at the others gathered around her bed. These children of humanity's fiercest warriors. These predator cubs who could have fled, who could have saved only themselves. But they had learned something from her in those desperate hours. Something very human. You don't leave your people behind, ever. Thank you, Tern, Ilara whispered, her voice breaking. Thank you, all of you. Tern looked up at her with those bright golden eyes and chirped once. The translator rendered it simply, family protects family, and in that moment, in a medical bay thousands of light years from Earth, two species understood each other perfectly. Humanity would never fight alone again.